Okay, so now that we have gone through the interface of Maya and how to navigate, how to create a box, and the main things that we need to look at and what we're going to work with. Let's for this video we are going to create a bouncing ball. The bouncing ball is like the very basics for animation. This is what they teach you in schools. This is like animation 101 on just a great exercise to learn animation. So let me go ahead, and what I'm going to do is create a cube, or sorry, create a sphere. So I'm going to create polygon primitives sphere. So it's going to create the sphere. And let me make sure that my layout is how I like it. So I like it stacked, two panes stacked. And then here I'm going to have graph editor. And this is, I covered this in the last video on how to get to this layout. So let's just create a bouncing ball. So I'm going to create this cube, or sorry, this sphere. I keep calling it a cube. In order to see this, in order to see it better, I'm going to hide the grid. So here, if you go to the drop-down menu of just this viewport, go to Show, and uncheck Grid. So again, that was Show and Grid down here. So I did that just so I could see the ball better. So what we're going to do is this ball is just going to bounce, just boom, 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 and we're going to add translation, and then a little bit of scale to squash and stretch it, and yeah, that'll take care of this. So let's make this 30. Let's see, no, let's make it 15 frames long, 20 frames long. So I'm going to go down to the timeline here and set the time distance to 20. Let's see if this is what we want. And actually, I'm going to set the first frame to 0. And what we want is the first frame and the last frame to be the same. So 0 and 20 to be the same. By the way, the frames here represent the time over 1 second. So right now, let me go to my preferences. Don't worry about what I'm doing here. But right now, this is set to 24 frames per second. That's film quality. Games, we do 30 frames a second. But for film, commercials do 30 frames a second as well. So games and commercials do 30. For film, it's always 24 frames per second. So it's 24 FPS. So that means for every one of these little frames is 1/24th of a second. So 20 frames is 20, 24. Do the math on that. It'll give you what that is. All right, so let's actually start the animation on this bouncing ball. So I'm going to go to frame 0 and set a key. I'm going to go to frame 20 and set a key. And the reason why I did that is frame 0 and frame 20 are got to be the same. So when I press play, it's going to loop, have a continuous loop. Now if we remember the oh, no, we're okay. We're okay. All right, so let's go to frame 10. This might be too slow. And what I'm going to do is select my cube and press W to translate and just move it up. Just move it up however much you want. So in this case, I'm moving it up, let's say 8 units. So what I did there, just so you guys know, sort of a best practice here. I'm going to Z to undo all that. So what I did is I moved the ball up just however, a bit how much I like. And then just to make it a nice rounded number, I'm going to the channel box editor here, and I see that it was 8.696 units up that I moved it. I'm just going to make it a nice round number of 8, just to make that simple. Oh look, we have this extra attribute here that we don't need. That the reason why I'm going to delete this, and you guys should too if you see it. The reason I'm deleting this is just it messes with the framing of my graph editor. So if I go in the graph editor and press F, this is framing everything. But since these keys are like so far out of value, the value's so high, I don't even know what they are, to be honest. I'm just going to delete those. So select those two and press delete. Now press F again. Now you can see a better frame of these controls, of these values. So what's happening is ball's going up and down. So when I press play, the ball's just going up and down. What I would like to do this is where you get into manipulating in the graph editor. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'd like to select the entire line, all the keys on the line, but it's not letting me, and the reason is because I have to go to select. So in this panel, I have to go to select curve, and that allows me to select the curve. So now I can select it. And I want to isolate this curve, so when I have this selected, it'll highlight on the left side. So you see how translate Y is highlighted with the little box there? That means that's what I have selected. So I want to isolate this selection so I don't see anything else except this in the graph editor. So let me isolate that. Looking good. Now what I want to do here is when the ball bounces, it's going to start here and then it's going to go up fast and then kind of stay up for a little bit of time, and then it starts to go down slowly, and then fast hits the bottom and goes up again. So the point is, it's starting when it hits the ground like instantly, but it stays in the air longer. Because right now it's just an even up and down motion. So let's make this. What we're going to do is mess with the tangents here. So I'm going to grab this the first key and grab this tangent, and what I have to do is middle mouse click. So hold middle mouse and hold. I don't have to press Alt or anything, just middle mouse hold and move this tangent. All right, looking good. Same thing with the back one. I'm going to select this tangent, middle mouse hold. So now it's staying up in the air longer and hitting the ground harder. See how that's working? Now I like that, but I actually want that to work even, to have even more emphasis of staying up longer, almost like stopping in the air and then dropping really fast. I think it makes it a really nice type of feel. So what we want to do is grab these tangents and pull them. And there you go. You see that the ball is staying up longer and then dropping fast. And because the first and the last frame are the exact same, it'll loop on that. That's pretty cool, huh? Alright, so now we kind of have that in place. What I'd like to do is the scale. So when I select in the graph editor, if I just select the polysphere here, it'll highlight everything once again, all the attributes once again. And I want to have scale. Now the way scale is going to work is that when it jumps up, it's going to scale inward, like it's going to get skinny. And then when it's up in the air here, it'll come back to normal. And then when it drops again, it'll get skinny. And then when it hits the ground here, it's going to flatten out. So let's see how that is going to play out. I'm going to isolate just the scale. So scale X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to select scale X, shift select all the way to Z. So I'll have all those selected, or I could just highlight all of them, like just select scale and keep my left mouse click selected and then just hover down. Alright, so at the bottom it's going to be scaled down like this. So just get the Y scale down to a place that we like. And the way this works is, in order to keep the volume of the circle, we don't just scale down to flatten it. We have to also scale the other two axes outward to make it a little bigger to keep the volume, right? So let me show you that again. So this ball is going to scale down in X and then out in both. Sorry, it scales down in Y and scales out in both Z and X. There we go. And then almost immediately, let's say 2 frames, it's going to need to get skinny again. Now, what I can do, one thing I can do is to like pull this upward and get this looking the way I want it there. But what I like to do to try and just keep things clean is I'll zero this out. So what I'll do is go into the channel box and go to scale. See how it's the scales are differently. The scale, to zero this out, you actually have to do, to zero out a scale, you have to put it to 1. Everything else you put to 0. See, translate and rotate, you can zero out it, you can actually press 0 to make it just go back to default. So just press Z to undo that. But scale, if scale you put 0 into this, it'll just become invisible, basically. So to zero out the scale, you have to actually put it to 1. So I do this to have a starting place that's clean, and now I'll do the opposite that I did on frame 0. I'll actually pull the Y upward, and then scale the other 2 axes inward. And then at the high point, which is frame 10, which is the midpoint, let's go ahead and zero out the scale again. See how that works? And then as it starts to fall, let's say maybe around frame 13, let's mess with this scaling as well. And again, try to keep the volume by, if one axis goes up, the others 2 have to respond. I don't like that. I think that's too much. You know what I like to do? Let's go to frame 18, which is just 2 frames before the end, and let's make this exaggerated, really scaled right before it hits. We might not need these. Let me check. Yeah. So, sorry, on frame 13, I'm going to delete those keys, so I'm just going to highlight them and press delete on the keyboard. And in order to make the first and the last frame the exact same, what I'm going to do is go to the first frame, which is frame 0. And here's a trick that I use all the time, so you want to keep this trick in mind. So frame 0, with the scale selected in the attribute in the channel editor, hold down the middle click button. So press middle click, hold that down, bring it all the way to the end, and then let go of middle click. And so it kind of saves that on its clipboard, and then press S to save the key. See that? Did you guys see the values changing in the graph editor? I'll show you again. So go to frame 0, middle mouse click, hold all the way to the end, and that saves it to the clipboard. Let me just press S, and you'll see the values that change there. So now the first and last frame are the exact same. All right, so boom, 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 boom. So there you go. A bouncing ball. And you can have a lot of fun with this. At this point, you can actually move it left and right if you guys want. If you want to get ambitious with it. Like maybe at this point it starts out, over here. And then at frame 10, it goes to 0 again on translate X. Or actually, let's pull that outward. And then again, go to the beginning, middle mouse click, hold to the end to copy and paste. And now you have the ball sort of going weird, wacky ways. Oops. Let's try this. It's too much. But anyways, you kind of get the idea. You can have some fun with this. Of course, what I'd have to do is draw this out to a length of 2 loops. So I'm going to make this 40 frames long. Don't worry about what I'm doing here. I'm just showing you guys how the different things you can do. So what I did was I put the cycle on, so now it's cycling. Alright, so this should work better. So now it's kind of going back and forth. Oh, hold on. I promise I'm going to get this. I promise I'm going to get it. There we go. So now it's bouncing back and forth. But anyways, so that's the lesson. Just a easy bouncing ball. I would encourage you to try it once, then delete it and try it again, delete it and try it again. You know, just get very familiar with how this works, and it'll give you very familiar with the graph editor and working in 3D space and trying different things. You can try a cube if you want. But yeah, so that's the lesson for this video. And the next video, we're actually going to talk about rigging. A very, very simplistic rigging where I'm just going to show you how the most basic rig actually works. And the reason is just to give us an idea as we deal with more complex rigs. Alright, see you guys in the next video.